This is meteorologist Mark Molnar for March 4th, 2013. Let's take a look at what we've got going on here. This is a very complicated scenario. We got winter storm warnings from the Dakotas all the way through south central Pennsylvania, winter storm watches for the nation's capital. So let's get right on into things. This is a very complicated scenario. I've been going back and forth with this. We have the absolute vorticity map here. We see the spiral of energy over the central mid-Atlantic, and then we've got this energy off the New England coast. The GFS is indicating that these two will interact. The upper level low will be further north across West Virginia, and that this will help push the low more towards the northeast. The Euro is squelching the low further south and continuing it out to sea because of this ridge in eastern Canada. Right now I'm believing kind of a mix between the two, and I'm going with that because neither model is kind of agreeing with each other. It's kind of the American models versus the European and the foreign models. So at this time I'm going to split the difference and move snowfall totals a little bit further to the north. Here's where I think the low pressure will ride. We'll have this upper level low move down through the central Midwest here and then towards over the Appalachians. That will phase out, transfer energy here into southern Virginia, and then start to move the low and try to move it up the coast. It won't be able to get out all the way up the coast because of this area of high pressure over eastern Canada and northern New England. However, we think the low will begin to slow down a bit and cause coastal flooding and erosion up and through the New England states here. And this is where we get into problems. So I'm also putting southern New England on a possible alert for this storm because we're not exactly sure what this thing can do at this point. There is blocking going on, and it's a little bit too far west to head all the way up the coast, but this thing could really slow down and cause some damage in especially coastal areas and some significant snowfall. So let's get into exactly just how much snowfall. This is my updated snowfall map. You can see across southern Pennsylvania here, Washington, D.C., Richmond, I've upped the snowfall totals. The snowfall will begin during the late evening and overnight hours on Tuesday evening. That will also play in effect because of the fact that it will be dark. We won't have the high radiation sun content from the snow or from the sun, and that will allow the snowfall to accumulate more efficiently overnight. Now on Wednesday afternoon, that's when a lot of areas, especially valley areas, get up into the mid-30s. But there might be enough heavy snowfall banding to go on to keep a lot of areas down to 32, 31, or 30 degrees. And that's what I'm accounting for here in my snowfall totals. Here across the central Appalachians, that's where we'll see definitely upwards of possibly a foot. Then you get into southern Pennsylvania, that's where we get anywhere 4 to 8, and some areas could see up towards of a foot now. And then you get into Richmond area, that we're pushing 4 to 7 in some of these areas. Richmond itself is going to be very complicated because that's where we have the marine layer moving in from the east. But on the back side of the system, that's where we could see, especially if this slows down, some of this banding on the back side of the storm could really, and cold air from the north could really hit portions of Virginia here. Some of the highest snowfall totals will probably occur in western and north central Virginia. So that's what we're looking at right now. And continuing on into southeastern Pennsylvania, southern New Jersey, and possibly parts of Long Island and southeastern New England could get in on the snow if this system continues to move more towards the north, and if it merges with some of that energy as I showed you on the absolute vorticity loop that I showed you across portions of off the New England coast. So at this time we're looking at a very complicated scenario across the mid-Atlantic. It's very clear cut for the Midwest, and let me show you those snowfall totals across the Midwest. Dakotas down in through the western Appalachians, very clear cut through central Ohio. Many of these areas 6 to 12 inches, 5 to 8 inches in many of these areas. So it's very, very clear cut. Chicago, Minneapolis, on up through Rochester, Fargo, and extending on up towards the southern provinces of Alberta and Winnipeg, up and through there. So that's what we're looking at for snowfall totals, but it's here in the mid-Atlantic. If we get back to the mid-Atlantic here with the low scenario, and that's the path that I'm looking at this current time, and conditions could really rapidly go downhill late Tuesday night into early Wednesday across much of the Mid-Atlantic. So we're going to continue to watch this. This is an evolving thing. The 12Z Euro is still further south. The GFS is further north. The NAM is kind of in between. I'm kind of going right now with in between, but I'll continue to watch this. I would like to see more model agreement as we go on into the day on Tuesday. So you can like us on Facebook. Don't forget, here is a temperature map of Tuesday quickly. You see that cold air building across the Midwest behind this system, and then Wednesday you see that cooler pocket of air across the Mid-Atlantic. Models are kind of inferring or hinting that there will be enough cold air dragged down as the adiabatic cooling of the heavier precipitation bands, especially on the northern and backside of the system, that we could see enough cooling going on to get mostly snow in a lot of areas. So that's what we're looking at right now. This is going to be a very strong system, and as I showed you, the coastal flood problems across portions of the coastline from the Mid-Atlantic up through southeast New England could be very, very a big problem. I'm meteorologist Mark Molnar. Like us on Facebook at MeteoMark. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Here's a 4-day forecast for my hometown viewers from Binghamton to Elmira and the northern tier counties of Pennsylvania.